Africa has great minds and talents tackling different challenges the continent faces. They are blazing the trail and shaping the narratives. One of such is Dr. Edem Eniang, a wildlife resource lecturer at the University of Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, as well as a conservationist and ecologist. He joins us on Green Angle, the show that explores the environment we live in and the ecological problems we face while proffering sustainable solutions. I am Ugochi Oluibo.
I grew up hunting these same animals from childhood. My parents were very poor, and because of poverty, we needed to do stuff, to get going as a family. My dad was a farmer. He used to plant rubber trees and plantations. He used to plant oil palm trees, like you've seen at the back of my house. And then he did a lot of commercial farming, but he had many children because he had 3 wives, okay? Because my father had 3 wives, he had 15 children. So he had quite a lot, and he was interested in getting all these children educated. So it was tough going for us. And to make it work for my family, some of us had to hunt. We had to rely on the rainforest to make a living. It was my duty to go to the forest to check all the traps in order to see which one caught an animal. And then I'll bring the animal home, and then my mother would sell the animal and would make extra income outside her petty trading. So that's how I came to know the forest, live the forest, and walk the animals.
Okay, so then you started going to school and you
started
to study?
I continued in school, one thing after another. I actually went to the university to study agriculture, but along the line, the new Department of Forestry and Wildlife was established, and they had no students. Wow. And I have always loved to do the unthinkable, what people never considered important. So I switched from agricultural economics and to go and study forestry and wildlife. Whenever we go to the bush, I'm always the first person to sight a living animal, no matter how the situation is. Just like luck, it always came to me. So I loved animals. I kept doing it until I got to my PhD level. Of late, the country has been in the bad light of global conservation because of several incidents that has put us in bad light as a transit route or trafficking country in terms of wild animals. I want to tell you, a few years ago, we had the case of the Taiping 4, gorillas that were supposedly born in captivity in the University of Ibadan Zoo. But Interpol discovered, and it was true, they were never born there. They were only kept there in transit, and later on they all were shipped to Europe, to Asia, and they were intercepted. Then they were repatriated. A lot of heads rolled at the University of Ibadan at that time, and somebody, top government official at the Federal Ministry of Environment, lost his job in the process, and those animals ended up in Africa again. The Cairo drowning of the chimps brought international outcry that didn't put Nigeria in a good light at all. So, based on this, we had yet another case, very famous case, the case of Ming and Fidel. Ming and Fidel were 2 drill monkeys that were smuggled out of Nigeria, and they ended up in Manila, Philippines. When they were to be repatriated, our president, then President Olusegun Obasanjo, was constrained to go to Abuja airport to receive these monkeys, which were named Ming, after the wife of the Fidel, after the president of the Philippines. So the 2 monkeys celebrated, they came back. Even Donald Duke, the governor of then Cross River, governor, went to Calabar Airport to receive the 2 monkeys. It was a well-celebrated case. So Nigeria has never had it so good in terms of international laws on wildlife, especially CITES law.
His PhD in 2014 was the first comprehensive study of snakes in southern Nigeria. In 2017, as head of Department of Forestry and Natural Environments Management, Dr. Eniang bravely took delivery of 3 boxes of poisonous snakes, spiders, millipedes and other reptiles smuggled from Cameroon and intercepted by the Nigeria Customs Service.
When 2 Cameroonians emerged at Calabar Port with 3 boxes containing spiders, hairy frogs, geckos, snakes, millipedes, and so on, Customs seized them, and they did a good job, because when they seized them, they got the manifest, and from the manifest they were able to see that those animals were not properly certified to travel. To take an animal of this nature out of a country of origin, you needed a CITES approval.
So it was smuggled?
They were smuggled. And even to the country of destination, you must also have a CITES approval to bring in. They needed these 2 papers, they had none. But on impounding these animals, they realized that they couldn't handle the situation because of the snakes. So the federal government now had to call me in because of the snakes to come and open the boxes, let government know the exact content and their conditions, if it were suitable to be released back to the wild, or what positive direction forward. So I took that responsibility, and government under international law, if they gave it to me as a private individual, definitely it would have been a problem for Nigeria. But because they needed it to go government to government, those animals were now handed over to me as University of Uyo, because I belong to the University of Uyo. Based on that, I went, the Federal Honorable Minister of Environment, Minister of State for Environment, Mr. Jibril, Usman Jibril, handed personally to me in Calabar.
And that had issues? That put you into so much trouble?
It put me into so much trouble because, first, my university did not understand where I was coming from. Secondly, the state government put so much pressure on the authorities of the university because of the consideration of the safety of people. The press did not help matters. Somebody somewhere wrote a story, Uyo becomes the snake capital of Nigeria, and it was all over the net. And our executive governor, His Excellency Dikin Udom Gabriel Emmanuel, didn't like this. Nobody liked it, because they didn't look at the snakes in the positive direction. Everybody is afraid of the snake. Everybody is worried about safety and security of people in a state that is very peaceful. So how did we suddenly become the snake capital? Because people look at snakes in a bad light. And then science, says that ophidiophobia, the fear of snakes, can even make somebody to die even when a snake has not tampered with the person. So that type of fear promoted that security concern, safety concern, and I got into serious mess. Then on the other hand, the snakes were too many for me to handle in the sense of facilities to keep them. My university became worried. Where is the facility to store them? Because management understood that even the minister and the ministry who gave the snakes may not be able to finance what was required to keep them safely. So management got the concern about the safety of the university environment, survival of the animals, facility to keep them humanely, and then my ability to cope with the situation. Then to worsen the situation, while the heat was on me from my state and my employer, the ministry themselves were not available to, shore up the situation, help me out. They weren't taking my calls. They did not talk government to government. So I was left alone, and I had no option but to tell the ministry, we have no choice but move the snakes out of Nigeria. What's the way forward? Return them to country of origin.
Wow.
So I wrote my status report to the minister, and even at that, there was no response, immediate response. To walk freely in the campus and inside the state, I had to present this status report now to the Commissioner of Environment in Akwa Ibom State. I went to his office with other colleagues, professors, and when we got there, I showed him, and that doused the fear. Even after that, still the ministry were not forthcoming. I didn't want government and their agencies to come and embarrass my family, because I was keeping these snakes here in my facility, in my house, as you have seen, as I have tortoise house. That's the same way they were here. Look at the snake's house there. I'll take you there. This serpentorium, this little serpentorium, has 4 chambers.
Okay.
This is chamber 1, chamber 2, chamber 3, chamber 4. We opened them separately. So I could only contain 4 species. So if there are cobras, I pack them here. Okay. If there are pythons, I pack them here. If there are vipers, I put them here. If there are mambas, I put them here. But here,
You had more than
we had 10 species. So I needed 10 of this facility I didn't have. So we had to keep some in the box, some in containers outside this place.
And you were not afraid for your family?
We used to it. We've been having snakes before this time. It's not the first time. We were more, sympathetic for the survival of these snakes. They were stressed. They got the snakes arrested on, I think, 23rd of July, and kept them locked in those transport boxes till 17th of August.
Whoa.
No food, nothing. So our sympathy went for their long-term survival, because these are viable populations for conservation. The world outside would have done everything humanly possible to sustain them. What do you consider people who travel from abroad, went to Cameroon, spent a fortune to gather those species and put them together, very advanced science, and they were to ship them to Europe? You think it was for nothing that they did that? It was a big, good business. When we were working on these Nigerian snakes, 6 ladies were working, including an 8-month-old pregnant woman. 8 months pregnant woman was in the team. Sometimes her husband sits with us through the night.
Today?
They worked. We have all the pictures of this event. We worked for 5 nights non-stop on packaging the snakes from their containers and transferring them into suitable containers to keep them till we will fly them back to Cameroon.
But they are experts. They are experts.
I trained them. The majority of them are my postgraduate students that I supervise in the university. So if you understand the snake, if you know what they are worth, you will not be afraid of them.
Really?
That's exactly what it is.
They are...
No, majority of the snakes in Nigeria are not poisonous, are completely harmless. Only a few, about 12 species around this region can actually harm a person of average health condition.
Okay, so how come lots of people die? The question is, how come lots
ignorance.
of people die?
Even if a harmless house snake should bite somebody, the fear, they will tremble and run to a native doctor, for example. Oh, I've been bitten by a snake, but what scratched the person is just like a chicken could have scratched you. So, but ignorance makes the person to panic, and from panic, a native doctor will certainly want your money when you approach them. You can't walk away freely. So, he asks you to pay for something, and he has to give you a concoction or something to convince you it's working. And the concoction ends up poisoning you, whereas the snake only scratched you. a warning bite that shouldn't have hurt you. Sincerely.
It's a warning bite.
Warning bite, dry bite, they just strike you to keep you away.
Different species of animals call Dr. Eniang's space home.
It will not bite this because it knows it's a metal. It cannot perceive blood. But if I put my hand there, it will bite. It has no poison, but it has teeth to wound you. You see where it's hiding. So what pythons do in reality is that they try as much as possible to hide their head from an intruder or a potential threat. They don't want you to grab their head because that's where their power lies. And it's only doing that because I'm gripping it painfully. This is what you now get for the crocodiles too.
How do you feed them? How do you support them?
It became so expensive. My wife goes to the market. She will not finish shopping for the family. She will go to the meat section to get meat waste from the people. She will pay them a little money and they give her the wasted meat that they don't sell. And she will bring them, we feed them. Because we used to have large population. I donated a few to the National Park Service of Nigeria in Abuja. Yes, so it's an enormous task to feed carnivores.
Okay, so we're feeding the crocodile. Let me try. That's me.
Okay. In 2012, there was an oil spill by ExxonMobil. So as a consultant to study wildlife, I went there, and in the process, I caught this crocodile in a pool that was filled with crude oil. We didn't think it would survive. It was of this size at that time. So for ExxonMobil, it was very interesting for them to keep this animal in captivity and understudy to know whether the pollution from the oil will kill it.
His family has also embraced his love for conservation.
Jan, how are you? I won't touch you.
So does John stay at home?
He stays inside, indoors. He knows his name. Didn't you hear when it answered?
So what do you feed John?
It takes his omnivore, eats everything. Eats animals.
Is John an endangered species?
Well, for now, they are not endangered, but they are vulnerable. They go in groups, and people, sometimes they find them living in a tree, they set fire on the whole tree and kill all. So with that kind of situation, they are easily exterminated. My children wouldn't even accept bush meat to eat it, they would just stare at you. So, because they know that these things shouldn't be for the support. We should rather look at their own values for our long-term survival, for the environment.
Ooh, he's gonna bite me.
You know, he's going to climb you.
What's the climb?
How many states in the nation can boast of petroleum? The petroleum is finite, it's not renewable. But I want to tell you, every community in Nigeria has one unique wildlife or the other. And these are valuable populations for tourism, for ecotourism, for conservation, and even for productive use. You can domesticate them. You can drop the perfume industry in Europe. Most of them are fed by a single animal species from Ethiopia. Guess what? That animal is all over the streets of Nigeria, but nobody is able to harness this potential. African civet, we had 4 in this household. That animal, we only eat it in the soup pot, but that's where the base material for perfume comes from. You feed them, the anal pouch produces the gland. The gland in the anal pouch produces that civeton, and the civeton forms the base material for perfumery. So how much more the snake venom? The snake venom is more expensive than gold in the market. Yet, are we able to extract venom from snakes?
A creature was named after you. Yes, you ought to know that. You should know that. A creature was named after you.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I got some visitors from the US. They came from the University of California in Berkeley. They said they were interested in studying agama lizards across Nigeria. And so my university authorities at that time approved a 14-day nationwide tour for me to lead them. So I led the Americans on a tour. We were in Cross River, the first leg of the tour. We were going around the whole nation. So one midnight around 2 a.m. we were searching for lizards because agama is difficult to catch in the daylight. They will run, they will climb. But in the night, deep in the night, they are sleeping and don't run, so we can easily get them. So we're busy searching for agama. I saw a bridge. There was a river, fast-flowing river. I went under the bridge. While searching for agama that may be sleeping there, I now found a lizard, a gecko, an animal I've never seen before. It was so beautiful with a stripe like a zebra. I quietly went and caught one. Came out and showed the white man. He too was shocked. So we got up to 3 specimens. We curated them professionally, checked the books, and it was possible for me to take them to the US. They went and did DNA analysis of this animal and discovered that they were completely new to science.
Wow.
And unlike some people would have done, Dr. Adam Liche and Machu Fujita, a Japanese American, they came together and agreed that they must name this animal after the man that found it first. And they sat down there, named it without even consulting me, because that wouldn't have been the name I would have loved to suggest. I would have called it something Hemidactylus edemensis, after Edem, because I believe Edem is my own name, and Eniang is my father's.
Oh, okay.
So
after your father.
they named it Hemidactylus Eniangii, after my son named Eniang. And so, after naming it, it was in the Annal of Science, published before they sent a copy of the Annal of Science to me. Said, Eniang, good luck, you got this. And I was shocked at the whole world. Wow. So thereafter, I was invited to different countries to come and explain, how did you see this animal? Where did you get it? What happened? And of these years, so that inspired me so much. Today, I have 6 different animals that are yet to be classified by science. And you know, on the internet, there is, for instance, a domain called snakes identification. If you ever put any snake picture on that domain, and 3, 4, 5 days after nobody identifies it, then you've got a new animal coming. So I have 2 snakes in that domain. Nobody worldwide has it.
Thank you very much for having us. We appreciate it.
It is.
And we wish you the best in your conservation efforts, and we hope the world really listens and we save those things for our children.
For our generations yet unborn. Yeah, and for our economy, sincerely.
Thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you. It's a
You're
pleasure.
watching Green Angle.